Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, Editor-in-Chief of thenationalpulse.com. Today we're talking about big tech and big tech bias, but with a twist. We all know big tech bias is happening. We all see it happening. You hear the stories of the high-profile people, including the President of the United States, who are routinely censored by Twitter, Google, Facebook, and the rest. We know there are solutions out there, from repealing Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, or using alternative platforms like Parler, or even bringing antitrust suits against the monopolistic tech firms. But those things are all going to take a lot of time, and time is something we don't always have at our disposal. As of right now, there are 73 days until the US elections in November, and that's certainly not enough time to pursue legislative changes to ensure fairness at the polls, especially not with this Congress. The Democrats pretend to be concerned about election integrity, as long as it concerns their ways of getting people to vote for them, which happens to include a style of voting that is susceptible to major fraud, mail-in ballots. But they're not so concerned when massive monopolistic corporates weigh in on the side of a candidate in an election. And I don't just mean through political donations, as if that whole thing isn't bad enough. Social media firms are kicking conservatives off their platforms every day. We know this. But did you know it doesn't just stop at social media? Uber, Lyft, PayPal, Venmo, Medium, and others have all banned conservative activist Laura Loomer from their platforms. Laura has many enemies, and even some on the ostensible political right, who target Loomer for daring to speak her mind about a plethora of issues. The Federalist published an article stating, quote, "Loomer is not a representative Republican, nor an existential threat to the Republic worthy of melodramatic denouncements and undying news cycles, but she's a bad apple, and her ascent does underscore the real-life consequences of elite corruption." That's a trash argument and plays the ball and not the man or woman. It's lazy, but it does accomplish one thing. It does the left's job for them. Shame on right-wing news sites who attack Loomer but turn a blind eye to the Republican establishment that continues to leech off China's teat, or targets President Trump because they love globalism and Loomer and Trump do not. I get it. You might not like Laura Loomer, but that doesn't mean you have to endorse major corporates targeting her. We're talking ride-sharing apps, money transfer and payment apps, blogging websites, and of course, social media platforms. No Facebook, no Twitter, none of that for Laura Loomer. Why? Because she's dangerous, they say. I get it. She is dangerous. She's dangerous to the status quo, she's dangerous to the political elite, and she's even dangerous to the Republican establishment. On August the 18th, Loomer trounced the Republican establishment's candidates in the Florida 21st Congressional District primary. That also happens to be Donald Trump's voting district. So assuming President Trump casts a vote for his congressman on November the 3rd, he'll ostensibly be voting for Laura Loomer. Loomer beat Christian Acosta by nearly 20%. She carried that race despite being banned from social media and not having the ability to reach voters online. Think about that. During a global pandemic, where meeting voters or knocking on doors was almost impossible to do in person, they banned a conservative political candidate from social media, and she still won. Incredible. Now Laura Loomer faces off against Democrat Lois Frankel, perhaps one of the most detestable people in politics in America. Frankel is a paid-up member of the political elite. She goes on long-paid junkets to foreign countries. She laughably claims that Michael Bloomberg, the effete and diminutive billionaire, is in touch with ordinary people. She's been trying to impeach Trump since 2016, and she's even been criticized by members of her own party for profiting off high healthcare prices, raising her own salary, and trying to change the West Palm Beach charter so she could run for a third term as mayor. Her own primary opponent said of Frankel, quote, "President Trump throws around the idea of extending term limits." He doesn't, he jokes about it. But Frankel actually attempted it, end quote. And Frankel's potential re-election in November, she's of course the favorite as the incumbent in a Democratic-leaning seat. That'll be marred by accusations of unfair play pertaining specifically to big tech. That's the view of the American Principles Project, as well as many others. On Thursday, yesterday, APP sent a letter to the Federal Election Commission, drawing attention to the fact that big tech allows Lois Frankel to use their platform to garner votes, but not for Laura Loomer. In fact, Twitter has already stood by their ban and de facto election interference, stating after Loomer's primary victory, quote, "The account owner you reference was permanently suspended for repeated violations of the Twitter rules, and we do not plan to reverse that enforcement action," end quote. Well, there you have it. They don't intend to reverse a ban for a congressional candidate, and they're giving Frankel a huge leg up, especially in an election where digital matters more than ever. Frankel has almost 60,000 followers across her social media, meaning her reach is in the high hundreds of thousands, if not more. Only 336,000 people voted in the 2016 election, and Frankel took around 211,000 of those votes. If a majority of her followers are potential voters or constituents, big tech is giving Frankel an assist to the tune of what would usually cost millions, and what will cost Loomer millions to reach those same people without social media. The APP letter is up on your screen now, and you can find it at AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. It asks if tech companies can legally grant a material benefit to one political candidate, and it asks if said preference should not be considered an in-kind contribution. I think it should be. Today we'll be speaking to the author of that letter, John Schweppe, and Laura Loomer, congressional candidate for Florida 21. They'll both be joining us on the program. Stick around for that. This is the National Pulse, where we watch the watchers.